Hello and welcome to CTN. To learn more about the show, please visit ciotalknetwork.com. And today, the topic is, how is Otis moving and serving people leveraging digital? An innovation journey. And indeed it is, because you might not think much of an elevator or escalator, but when you're going to an appointed meeting, you're trying to catch a flight, you're trying to attend a session at a very busy conference, or you want to be served in your room at a hotel after a long day where you want to relax. Frankly, somebody's using an elevator or an escalator to make things happen and actually move people who are either serving you or yourself to a desired location safely and quickly. So when we have such important cargo going on these escalators and elevators, what is Otis doing while they have been at it for many years? But what are they doing to leverage digital to innovate at the pace of business change, and so that they can stay relevant and also make sure the resiliency and reliability of their products and services are ensured? So to discuss this, I have with me Neil Green, Executive Vice President and Chief Digital Officer from Otis Elevator Company. Hey, Neil, how are you?
I'm doing well, Sanjog. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Pleasure is all mine. Frankly, if you ask any individual, they may not think much, but they don't even realize how much may be going behind making sure an elevator always works or escalator always works. And you've always taken, as an organization, the onus of making sure this is always reliable and a safe transport. But then, if it's working, some people might say, well, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Or let me ask it a different way. What is it so special that is changing in the ecosystem or in the needs that customers may have asked your organization or this industry so that we should go back to the drawing board and do some innovation?
Thanks for that question. I'll start by saying the future of smart cities is a big driver for what motivates us in innovation. And the pandemic, frankly, accelerated some of that thought process as we thought about how users call their elevator in a touchless manner by integrating mobile devices with our controller so you can call the elevators. So when we think about safety, we think about reliability. It's not just the safety of the elevator and how it goes from floor to floor, but it's safety and how our passengers actually engage with the elevator. So that was one aspect of innovation. How do we provide cloud-based APIs that allows the elevator controller to integrate with a local application from the building or from other third parties? In addition to the safety aspect that we create with our device integration, there's this big focus on how do we use data to really think about when potential issues may arrive, and how do we use these predictive insights to proactively address maintenance issues before they result in potentially shutdowns. So thinking about artificial intelligence, using sensor data that we've been collecting, using the controller data, and again, using predictability to ensure that we have greater uptime for the units in the field. And then as I think about a smart city and a smart building, the elevator is in the center of the building, for lack of a better phrase. And as I think about what other systems exist in the building and its benefit or value, and innovating on how the elevator information or data integrates with the other building systems, this is, again, another sense of how we think about innovation and how we drive that integration into the smarter city, smarter building, and the role that Otis plays. So a lot of this has to do with the future of work. Again, cities are becoming more digital, they're becoming taller, faster, smarter. And we see that we play a central role in innovating to make that a reality. That's how we think about innovation and the ecosystem that's pushing for these types of changes.
So, to be very frank, this looks very fascinating, where we are trying to bring these different technologies. And because we can connect things, we are definitely connecting. Now, thinking about the business, which is your organization, or thinking about the customers or even your partners, what would you say would be the incremental benefit would this digital enablement bring to the products like the elevators, escalators you're offering, and this industry itself, which would outweigh the costs and risk of introducing digital? As we know, there could be those existing risks and things which could jeopardize the basic aspects of how we live our life and do business. So much so that it would justify investment for customers.
The biggest benefit that I would highlight, Sanjog, is the uptime. Right. The last thing you need is to go to a hotel and it's got 2 elevators and one is out of service, or your apartment building or your facility and you've got to take the stairs, or we displace our potential users in a hospital or some other environment. So uptime is the biggest benefit that these digital technologies provide. And if you let me geek out for a minute, I'll share some examples with you. There we have, when our mechanic goes on site, he's got a tool. It's called a service tool. He connects it to the controller and he's able to do a bunch of diagnostics and reboot and reset and these types of capabilities. We're now able to use using a cloud-based solution where we connect our controller information. We have sensors that we're sending the information to the cloud. And via the cloud, we are able to look at the logs of the unit. We're able to see what's happened over the last X number of days or hours. If there's an issue that requires us to potentially reboot the main controller board, we have the ability to do that remotely. If there's a reason for us to change certain settings, we have the ability to do that remotely. So there's some interesting capabilities that we're now enabling, that instead of actually having to have a mechanic on site, we're able to do it remotely. And if I can reduce the downtime for our customers, that's a huge benefit. The other benefit that comes with all these digital investments that we're making from an internal Otis perspective is, how do we improve the bottom line? How do we drive efficiencies? How do we improve the productivities of our team? Right. So if I have the ability to tell my mechanic that this unit has experienced these number of issues, or using artificial intelligence or machine learning, we can say these types of indicators will lead to this potential failure. So when you go to this job site, bring these tools, plan to do this type of work. If we can enable our mechanics to quickly identify and fix things, again, before they result in breakdown, then that's a huge benefit for us. And how does it drive improvement in our margins? And I talked about this before: smart cities, smart buildings, integrating our solutions with other building systems. So these are benefits that I see when we talk to our customers and we talk about the digital transformation that's at foot. We highlight a lot of these benefits. And frankly, our customers get really excited about increased uptime. That's a key metric that most of our customers, it just resonates.
So would you say that while Otis is innovating, are you seeing your ecosystem partner, who all have to come together to make this end benefit realized, are they stepping up as well? But otherwise, they could be the weakest link, which is preventing you from delivering value.
In some cases, we're pushing them. In some cases, they're pushing us. And I'll share a couple of examples. The robotics is an emerging field in buildings. Right? Some office buildings are looking to have robots perform security in the evening. Other, maybe hotels, are looking for robots to provide concierge services. Hospitals are potentially looking for robots to bring towels or maybe meals from a central location to each floor. So our customers were asking us, how do you enable robots to seamlessly use the Otis elevators? And our teams have been seeing enough touch points that a hospital in Italy came to us and said, hey, we'd like to do X, and hotel in Vegas came to us. Over the last year and a half to 2 years, we've engaged with over 20 robotics manufacturers around the globe to enable their robots to autonomously call our elevators, select their destination, get an extended wait time for the robots to board the elevator, travel to their desired floor, and then exit, right? And we're doing this based on cloud-based APIs. This is a case where the ecosystem is saying, we see a need, help us enable it. There are other cases where we're also being pushed by our customers. Now, I talked earlier about touchless ways of interacting with the elevators. We have specific applications and tools that's part of our solutions that we deliver. But our customers, whether it's an office building, whether it's a residential building, they may have their own applications. They may have an app for you to schedule a conference room, or an app to know when your mail arrives or a package is delivered. A lot of these customers are saying, we would love to have our own app that allows our user to call an elevator using their phone. So how we think about that ecosystem and enabling these capabilities is where my team and I spend our time and energy. And the last example is there's a lot of building management systems out there. I won't go through all the names, but the big players in the ecosystem. And they may be looking at what are all the systems in a building today, whether it's HVAC, whether it's fire and security, whether it's access control. And an elevator is one of those key systems that they're looking at. How do we get our data, interesting insights on how many runs the elevator has made today, what floor is it on today? How do we get that insights from the elevator into these building management systems? To answer your question, sorry for being long-winded, but there's a lot of pull from our customers and the ecosystem, and there's a lot of things that we're doing. But in general, I find that our customers are very receptive to the change, and in a lot of cases, they're asking us to go faster and adopting some of these technologies that are good for them, and it drives benefits for their users.
Let's take a quick break, listeners. We'll be right back after these messages and perhaps dig a little deeper about how Otis as an organization is rationalizing and orchestrating its product development and operational optimization efforts so that they can deliver the most value to its customers and partners while also moving towards sustainability and profitability. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Today, enterprise technology is both strategic and global. Each week on CTN CIO Talk Network, IT thought leaders from around the world share their experience with listeners as they discuss with Sanjog Aul how they are trimming costs and partnering with business to innovate and help IT become more competitive, better care for customers, and improve the corporate bottom line. If you want to keep up with IT thought leadership, listen to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul at CIOTalkNetwork.com. You are listening to CTN CIO Talk Network with Sanjog Aul. To learn more about our program, please visit CIOTalkNetwork.com. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. Neil, I'm sure there must be a lot of complexity and a lot of hard work going behind the scenes while what you produce is phenomenal, right? So how, with so many opportunities to do innovation, so many places to invest, might be coming in front of you and you have to figure out a way to rationalize. And then there are so many things that have to be done new, more, or different, whether it comes to product development or how you optimize your operations for the end goal, which is your company is profitable, you support sustainability, you are able to thrive, not just survive, and not just you. Your customers enjoy the journey, your partners enjoy being your partners. How do you do all of that?
Where do I start? You mentioned sustainability, and I'll give you an example of something that's quite simple when you think about it, but it's driving a tremendous amount of value from operational efficiency as well as sustainability. Otis has over 2 million units under contract. We service on an annual basis. And if you think about a local branch as an example, or take the New England, there may be several mechanics in a specific branch area, and they may be overlapping in how they service the various units. Maybe it's historical relationships. Maybe the one mechanic has been dealing with a certain customer for a certain period of time. There are some inefficiencies on how we schedule the visits or the routes. So I shouldn't say simple, I don't want to make this seem trivial, but we have a technology, we call it route optimization. We basically take a look at the number of units we have in a specific area, and we make a recommendation on what's the order that the mechanic should visit these various stops on his route. And we segment which mechanic should visit one predefined area, how other mechanics define other predefined areas. So through this route optimization solution, as an example, we've been able to achieve several positive outcomes. First, we've been able to reduce the travel time that each of our mechanics will take in servicing the units in their specific territory. Second, we're reducing the amount of gas or fuel consumption that the mechanics would use because there's a more efficient way of getting them to and from the specific units in their territory. We're reducing our carbon footprint, the emissions of a greenhouse gas. So based on using machine learning, based on using artificial intelligence, we've come up with these tools to, again, drive sustainability, but make the business much more efficient. Another example I'll give, we talked a little bit before about some of these remote capabilities that we have. One of our flagship products that we've been shipping for the last couple of years, we call it Otis ONE. It's our IoT-based platform. And as part of this is a subscription service where we can provide customers with real-time insights and information into what's happening with their building. We have a terminology internal to our internal to our industry. It's called running on arrival, or ROA. And it basically happens when a customer calls and says, hey, there's a problem with my unit. It's out of service. Please send a mechanic. And we have the ability for these Otis ONE units to see real time what's the status of the elevator. And in a lot of cases, we've said to our customer, actually, Mr. Customer, your unit is not out of service. You can see that it was on the 7th floor. Now it's on the 6th floor. It's heading to the 5th floor. And these capabilities provides us with better customer support. We can give a customer real-time information and what's happening with their unit. In some cases, for us to send a truck or dispatch a mechanic, that results in an incremental charge for the customer. And if we're driving benefit to them and saving them a cost because we can tell them the status of their unit, and as I described earlier, if there's some remote things we can do to either reset or change parameters, this is creating value. The savings that we can generate from these technology transformation is huge. And if you allow me to digress just a little bit, from a digital transformation and from a chief digital officer role, I see my remit as three key things. It's how do we create new services and solutions to drive top line growth? How do we drive efficiencies and reduce the cost of servicing our customers? How do we improve the bottom line? And then the third piece is what are the strategic efforts and initiatives, the strategic partnerships that we can employ to deliver the transformation of how we do business, the business processes. And that second one, how do we drive improvement in our bottom line, gets a lot of attention, if you can imagine.
So yourself and perhaps your executive management team, what leadership style and culture have you tried to foster, which is helping you deliver consistent innovation and value creation for all parties involved?
Leadership is something that is very important and I take very seriously. To me, leadership boils down to a handful of things. First, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of small things that we can do that aggregated together can actually drive some meaningful impact to the corporation. So part of my job from a leadership perspective is just being able to tell or demonstrate to my teams how their individual roles can add value, greater value to the bigger corporation. Part of my job is not to do the work. My job is to set the vision, to articulate what's possible, and enable the teams to execute to that, right? They bring their creativity, they bring their smarts, they bring their relevant history and experiences, and they go off and they operate and they execute, and they bring us those insightful and out-of-the-box solutions. When I think about some of the challenges that we face in certain organizations, is that people at times look a tops-down approach in solving problems or coming up with the ideas. And one of the things that I want to encourage and push is that great ideas come from everywhere in the organization. It doesn't only come from one direction. And it's important for me that all voices are heard, that we're getting contributions from all the places in the organization. So how do we create an environment where folks feel like they can contribute, they can bring their best ideas, their best thoughts, that there's active listening, that we're thinking, how do we do things very differently? I'll maybe digress a little bit and say, one of the challenges from my perspective in technology adoption is really change management. And that's a big part of the leadership role that we have to play. How do you paint that vision of here are the business processes that we were employing previously, and based on these technology advances, here's how our business processes change. And bringing those folks along is a huge part of that leadership journey. And so it's a mouthful, but I think for me, the philosophy is set a clear vision, make sure the teams understand how their individual role plays to achieving the broader objective. And it's encouraging folks to speak up and making sure that we're getting feedback from multiple places in the organization. And how do we drive change management? How do we reduce the friction that may be standing in the way from being successful?
So one last question for you, Neil. What is the future of your industry as you see it? And how is Otis staying ahead? Because you need to be able to continue to build and maintain trust at the very speed of change.
That's an insightful question. I don't think our industry is very different from other industries in the sense that it's the user experience that's driving a lot of the changes and a lot of the investments that we have to make. And I love using the term frictionless passenger experience or the seamless passenger experience, which basically takes into account what are the different steps that a passenger of an Otis elevator or an escalator or a moving walkway, what is their experience and how do we make it as frictionless, as seamless as possible? As we think about emerging technologies that enables that vision to come to fruition, that's where we spend our time and energy. When I think about the future of smart cities, urban mobility comes to mind. You're seeing a lot of articles over the last few weeks or months about autonomous vertical takeoff and landing vehicles that moves passengers from crowded cities to you're sitting in New York City traffic. You're able to go from the rooftop of one building to the next. There's a role that an elevator plays in that equation. And we've got some technologies and we have some partnerships dealing with access control that we can, again, think about that passenger experience. How do we ensure that the elevator can be a value proposition, can add value in that overall equation? So it's really thinking about how do we leverage our technologies, our connected technologies. So I talked about our Otis ONE, we've talked about subscription type services, we've talked about cloud-based APIs. How do we think about all these capabilities in a connected world where the elevator becomes an instrumental part of the daily access? I'll say, Sanjog, before I joined Otis, I seldom ever thought about the elevator. I just took it for granted that it's there and it helps me to get from point A to point B. But now I'm spending a ton of time, my team and with our respective peers in the organization, thinking about what's that experience. Once you're in the elevator for a 15-second ride or a minute ride, depending on how tall the building is, what are the things that Otis can provide that makes that experience as optimal as it can be for the customer? So that's how I think about how our industry is changing. And again, I don't think it's very different from other industries when you think about the customer experience.
Once again, thank you so much, Neil, for sharing your insights about how Otis is moving and serving people and making it even better, leveraging digital. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And listeners, please connect with us on social media, subscribe to our podcast. Once again, thank you for listening to CTN. This is your host, Sanjog Aul, signing off. Till next week, take care and God bless.